Hello again. Today I want to make a short video about the subject of anger and how that plays into a lot of what is happening on social media and beyond. Sometimes what happens on social media with people falling out, getting cancelled, being blocked, unfriended, etc. can then play out into the real world with people that you may have known for a very long time even, who no longer speak to you, which is rather sad. So one of the things that seems to happen is this sort of sense of outrage, people becoming extremely angry, upset, often what's called triggered in modern terminology. So I wanted to look at that really. What seems to be happening is people may express their opinion, just honestly, just saying what they think about a certain thing. It could be any number of subjects, and then you're heaped with derision by a particular person or even a group of people. I think they call that dogpiling, when a number of people attack you for having said what you think about something. Now, I'm very much in favour of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Obviously, within the bounds of a law, I would not recommend hate speech to anyone, being discriminatory and encouraging violence or horrible acts or ill treatment of people. But unfortunately now the definition of hate speech seems to be changing in certain areas of society, where just saying anything that's vaguely disagreeable to some people is now regarded as hate speech. It's become actually quite ridiculous, to the point where with certain people you can't really say anything at all without them flying off the handle, becoming triggered, and often their response to what might be a very minor discretion is actually to become incredibly aggressive themselves. So you've just said, for instance, I don't like the colour blue. Somebody flies off a handle and said blue is best, it's, how dare you, it's disgraceful, and their overreaction might be to unfriend you, to block you, to hurl insults at you just for something quite simple. And I've wondered a lot about this, is what is the core of this? What is it that makes people behave in such an extreme way? And my thinking is actually that there's a common thread with this. In my own experience, I have lost friends and been had people break off contact with me. And the common thread with nearly all of these people, I'd say probably 95% of them, is anxiety. A lot of them seem to have anxiety problems. And something you've said that may seem fairly innocuous, or in my case, something I've said, has triggered them to the point where they just can't seem to cope, and they just go absolutely berserk. And you end up being unfriended, etc. I've thought about this a lot and wondered to myself, how did I really say anything so terrible? Was I really outrageous? Was I insensitive? And I think, well, generally speaking, no. I was just expressing my opinion honestly. And I think people should be free to express their opinion. You've got to be yourself. You can't change who you are just to avoid people getting upset. Otherwise, that's a form of a lie. If you constantly have to censor yourself and modify everything you have to say in case someone might get upset, you're just curtailing your own life and censoring your own self. so that you won't risk upsetting people. Obviously, I don't encourage people to be outrageous or say mean, horrible things. That's awful. Hate speech is something that does exist, and the laws that exist to cover that are there for a reason, to protect people from being horribly discriminated against and being mistreated. And that's important, but people flying off the handle, cancelling you, etc., over just a simple opinion about something to do with politics or some social issue, strikes me as somewhat extreme. And I would say a lot of this comes down to self-mastery, the inability to control your own emotions, the inability to control your own anxiety, and to take responsibility for your own life. The need to blame other people, this being triggered, is not so much indicative of what someone else has done. It's indicative of a person's inability to control their own anger, their own upset, and feeling obliged to react with over the top anger, vitriol quite often, and being utterly unreasonable in response to something that has upset them. Unfortunately, when people get into a very highly emotional state of mind, they're not really thinking anymore. They're just reacting, the sort of gut reaction, often a very violent response emotionally. So I think maybe key to this, of maybe holding on to your friends instead of burning all your bridges, is to try to moderate your reactions. Maybe to think a little bit first before pressing the cancel button on people. Someone in the past said to me that it's a good idea just to count to 10 before you react in a very negative way to something. And I think that's pretty good advice, because it's easy to regret your actions later, but sometimes embarrassment or an inability to admit that you might have been wrong stops people from actually reversing that. People might feel bad later on about what they've done in ending a friendship or refusing to speak to somebody, but some people can't backtrack and go, look, I'm sorry about that. I overreacted. They just can't cope with that because of their anxiety problems that cause them to do this crazy thing in the first place. They can't then accept that they made a mistake or tell the other person that they're sorry. So perhaps the best thing for people who have these problems of overreacting, of being triggered, of being anxious, is perhaps not to react at all to start with. Take a few moments, try and calm yourself down, try and master your emotions sufficiently that you can actually give a proper response that's not just based purely in anger and outrage. And that way I think people would treat each other with more compassion, more humanely, and more fairly, which can only be a good thing as far as I can see. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to click on the like button or leave a comment if you wish. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.